Our story begins shortly after the destruction of Starkiller Base. General Leia Organa was in communications with Zay Versio and Shriv Surgov. Leia felt bad that she had to send them away after Zay just lost her parents, Iden Versio and Del Miko, and Shriv lost two longtime friends, and they had just gotten back to Dakar. But Leia needed all the help she could get, so she decided to send them to find allies out in the galaxy. But just before she was going to ask them, she had a thought. The galaxy knew that she was the daughter of Vader. Why would anyone want to help her in the Resistance? Especially with a fascist faction that had just wiped out the New Republic government in one swift strike. So who's to say if people would fight against the First Order? They needed someone to convince them. So Leia would send Zay and Shriv to Pisana to find Lando Calrissian, as she had tracked him there just in case she needed his help, which was now the case. Shortly after, the Resistance would continue their evacuation with a Mandator Siege Dreadnought and 3 Resurgent-class Star Destroyers pulled out of hyperspace. Inferno Squad would arrive on Pisana, where they would meet Lando Calrissian after searching for him for a while, and with his charm, he would greet them both. And him and Shiv would have an "it's good to see you, old friend" kind of interaction. He also knew Zay, but wondered where Del and Iden were, and that's when Zay would explain to him that they were killed by the First Order almost a day ago. Lando would be disheartened to hear this, and he would comfort Zay as her parents were good friends of his that saved the galaxy. Shriv asked Lando to help the Resistance, as he was their only hope of finding allies to unify the galaxy and end the First Order. The Resistance couldn't fight them on their own. But Lando was hesitant as he lost his daughter to them and was still trying to find her, but Shriv would finish his request with asking him to do it for Leia. And not just Leia, but to do it for Iden and Del and all the friends they lost. So after a bit of time of thinking, Lando decided that perhaps it would be best if he did find allies to help the Resistance fight off the First Order. And plus, it might even give him a chance to find his daughter, Kadara Calrissian. So he agreed to do it, not just for his daughter, but for his friends that were taken away from him from the First Order. So Lando would take Lando's luxury 3000 space yacht, also known as the Lady Luck, and they would go out to find allies while keeping in contact with Leia, just so when she alerted them of her location, and that's where they could bring the growing army. As for the TIE fighter, Zay and Shriv would crash it just so there wouldn't be any confusion with the TIE fighter later on. A couple days later, depending where you were in the galaxy, multiple events would occur that would result in Vice Admiral Holdo being able to just pull off a 1-in-a-million move, splitting the Supremacy in two through hyperspace ramming. Kylo Ren killed Snoke and became the leader of the First Order, and the Resistance were setting up their defenses on an old rebel base at Crait. With Kylo Ren as supreme leader of the First Order, he would land a small ground force of First Order AT-AT walkers and all-terrain Mega Caliber 6 walkers, a couple AT-HH carriers, Kylo Ren's shuttle, and a super laser siege cannon to open the door on Crait. As Finn said it would crack it open like an egg. The Resistance sent ski speeders to hold them off, but this would prove to be challenging as they were losing ski speeders left and right. They would keep fighting off the First Order to the best of their abilities, but they were just being too overwhelmed by First Order TIE fighters and walkers. But things would be easier as the Millennium Falcon would start taking out the TIE fighters, and then not too long after, a T-65B X-Wing starfighter, also known as the Red 5, came out of hyperspace as well to assist the Resistance in the air, as Lando had contacted Luke, but Luke was extremely grateful for it as he wanted to redeem himself and make it up to Rey after he felt like he failed her. It did take him a little bit to regain his Force connection, but once he did, he was able to pull his X-Wing out of the water, and that's how he made it to Crait in the nick of time, as he was able to find out that the Resistance were on Crait thanks to his connection with Leia. Kylo knew Luke was in that X-Wing, and he wanted all of his forces to fire on him, but he would be interrupted by a communication from the remainder of his fleet above the planet of Crait, where Captain Edrison Peavy alerted him that a massive fleet had just jumped out of hyperspace. There were 4,000 starships and starfighters in total, full of volunteer and military vessels across the galaxy. Most of them were starfighters, freighters, and transports, but this would be more than enough to wipe out the First Order fleet, as a small portion of the fleet would be Mon Calamari cruisers, as they wanted to prevent the First Order from getting to them first. and Lando would also convince them too. But this would not be the entire fleet, as the entire fleet of 14,000 to 16,000 ships would be divided into 7 fleets in order to spread across the galaxy and make sure that no First Order fleet survived to the battle. As for Kylo and Hux, they would be furious and shocked to see this, and they would launch their fighters from their Star Destroyers, and a massive space battle began above Crait. And Kylo Ren had told the pilots to abandon the ground forces and get them out of there, but he would be shot down by 2 squadrons of X-Wings and Y-Wings, led by a U-wing gunship that would be piloted by Wedge Antilles himself. He would be shot down into one of the AT-MC-6 walkers, as Wedge noticed their bombs and told the pilots to shoot the bombs on the walkers, which would destroy them all. And the AT-AT walkers would be shot in the necks. The carriers and the super laser cannon would also be destroyed, as it was close to finishing loading its laser, but it didn't get a chance to finish it, as it would be destroyed by the bombs of a Y-Wing. And because the First Order were caught off guard by the Citizens fleet, they wouldn't get a chance to counter, as there was just too many people from across the galaxy aiding the resistance. As for the space battle above Crait, the Resistance-class Star Destroyers would fall one by one, as while they had much better shielding, they were just too overwhelmed by the sheer firepower of the Citizens fleet. It also didn't help that there were Mon Calamaran ships in the fight as well. Otherwise, they would have had a better chance. And while over 1,000 ships would be destroyed on the Citizens fleet side, the large majority were freighters and starfighters, with a few Mon Calamari ships being crushed as well. And it also didn't help that the First Order had launched all of their fighters, which was a lot of them, so they were somewhat evenly matched. But it was really the Resurgent-class Star Destroyers that was the biggest challenge for the Citizens fleet to destroy, but they would destroy them. And regardless, the Citizens fleet won the battle. And regardless, the Citizens fleet not only just won the battle, but won the war, as all the other fleets across the galaxy would be destroyed by the Citizens fleets. Shortly after the Battle of Crait, Lando would contact Leia, saying that they can come out now, hide and seek was over. Leia laughed at this, glad to hear Lando's voice again, and glad to know that Shrivenze succeeded in finding Lando and bringing Lando back. As for Luke, Lando, Wedge, and Chewie, they would land in front of the gate, and they would also reunite. And once the door opened, they'd reunite with Leia, and Luke would have a lot of apologies to make, but Leia explained that she never blamed him, and that it was Snoke who turned her son to the dark side. But as for Rey, Luke would apologize to her as well for failing her, but she was willing to give him a second chance, and he would train her in the ways of the Force. Over the next month, the Resistance and the Citizens fleet would reconnect with the New Republic systems and military forces, as they would establish a new government known as the Galactic Alliance, which would be led by Leia Organa, as Lando would frame it that Leia stood brave against the First Order and saved the galaxy, and that it was actually because of Leia that Lando was able to bring everyone together. And they would keep the remaining military forces, and First Order remnants would arise, but they would be crushed by the New Republic military whenever they were found, which would be thanks to Hera, who would become a major military general, as well as Poe Dameron. The Jedi Order would begin rebuilding with Jedi such as Luke, Cal, Ezra, Jason, Kata Kuna, Rey, Finn, and Sabine, and a small Force-sensitive boy who would be rescued by Luke on Canto Bight. His friends would also be saved as well, but Tamiri Black was the one who was Force-sensitive. And the Jedi would begin looking for new members. And before they started looking for new members, the Jedi and Lando would decide to reopen the investigation of Pisana in order to see if they can find Ochi Bestoon's dagger. It would be tricky, but they would manage to find the location, and Rey would discover the dagger next to Ochi's remains. And with this, it would lead them to Kef Bir, where they would discover former First Order stormtroopers that defected from the First Order. And they would go with the Jedi after the tide went down, and they would make their way to the Death Star and find the Sith Wayfinder there. And once they found their way to Exegol, they would sneak their way into the Sith Citadel, even though Palpatine knew they were there. But he had been too busy trying to figure out what to do about his Final Order fleet, as he wasn't ready yet, and the problem was there was a Citizens fleet going around the galaxy with a massive amount of ships. Whatever his plan was to be, it would never come to fruition, as the Jedi would find Palpatine and would be shocked to see him here. But most of the Jedi would distract the Sovereign Protectors, and Rey would cut down Palpatine's tube that kept him alive, as while he revealed himself to be her grandfather, she had her family with the Jedi, ending the Sith once and for all. Shortly after, they would make like a Jedi and escape, which was good timing because the Sith Citadel and the Final Order fleet were starting to collapse upon themselves. Over the rest of the year of 34 ABY, the Citizens Fleet, Resistance, and the New Republic remnants had officially established the Galactic Alliance, and they would commit to campaigns of wiping out criminal empires and finding planets that could help their economy rebuild. But their economy wasn't the only thing to rebuild, as the Jedi Order would also continue to grow. And the Knights of Ren and other Sith cults would put up a fight, but they would be found and wiped out by the new Jedi Order. A lot of it was just because the Jedi so happened to run into them by chance. And years later, the galaxy would continue to rebuild, and Leia, Shriv, Zay, and Lando would be remembered as the ones who were able to unite the galaxy into a fleet known as the Citizens' Fleet, representing unity and peace for centuries to come. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our story.